The headline medical stories that affect you and your family. This is What's Happening in Health.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on What's Happening in Health. Got a great show planned for you today. You know, staying active with heart problems can be challenging, but the team at the Christ Hospital works with every heart patient, no matter the problem. And one of those great patients in-house today, we want to say a quick hello. Her name is Carolyn Keating, and she is here from the Christ Hospital Health Network to tell us a little bit of her story. She's doing great now, just ran in the flying pig. I can't wait to hear more. And we are celebrating cancer survivors all month long. We will meet several who say they are grateful for every day. They are an inspiration to all of us. But first, we start with a quick headline for you. We're heading into summer, and new research shows humans are seasonal creatures. Our health is influenced by a change in seasons. A study by the University of Michigan found the amount of sunlight we get really influences our moods, our sleep schedules, and our circadian rhythm. Sunlight exposure could also impact your metabolism and your cardiovascular health as well, researchers say. It is one reason right now they say getting outside is so good for you. And now to our top story in Aging Gracefully today. Turns out that many of the foods that we need for a lifetime of good health aren't just good for the body, they're good for the mind too. Ruben Molina is making many of these foods here at this cooking demonstration at Ohio's Life Enriching Community. Brain health, he says, is high on the list. So he starts with not just a wide variety of colors and flavors, but
we also look for textures and different colors on the plate.
His main entree tops the list of anti-anxiety foods. It's salmon, full of omega-3s. One study found those who eat salmon 3 times a week for 5 months had lower stress and anxiety, mainly because it fights inflammation in the brain. Ann Nickerson says she loves this healthy seafood.
I choose salmon at least once, twice a week.
Eggs are next on the list for anti-anxiety foods. They're packed with vitamin D, and low levels of vitamin D are linked to anxiety and depression. Blueberries make the anti-anxiety list. So does yogurt, which has good gut bacteria. Nuts, such as almonds, fight anxiety. A second study found those who ate more of them were less likely to feel anxious than those who ate the least. Beans make good brain food. Garbanzo beans used in hummus give you
vitamins, minerals, including a good amount of fiber.
All good for brain health, especially when combined with a lot of fruits and vegetables, especially dark green vegetables and bright red ones. These are loaded with natural compounds known as antioxidants, which help fight all kinds of disease. The more of them, the better at a meal, Chef Rubin says, and those eating these foods think so too.
It's all good, and it's well balanced, and it's really good food.
These foods, of course, not a cure for anxiety, but they do support nutrients needed for brain health. Something to think about, huh? All right, in legal medicine today, the Department of Health and Human Services has canceled a contract with Moderna for the development of a bird flu vaccine. The $590 million contract was announced just days before President Trump was sworn in for a second term. The announcement comes as Moderna reported positive data from an early phase trial on the mRNA-based vaccine. Now, this is the same technology that Moderna used to create its vaccine for COVID-19. It's been found safe and effective. We asked the team at TriHealth about this vaccine sort of being a no-go and their thoughts on that.
Bird flu seems like it's settled down a little bit, but it's clearly still out there, and we will see ongoing outbreaks of bird flu. I think it's important that we stay on top of what kind of flu virus is causing flu in animals, whether it be birds or cows or whatever, because it wouldn't take much of a change in that virus to jump into humans. And if we already have a vaccine that we know is available and works for that strain, we can rapidly get that out into protective amounts so people don't get sick from that flu.
Boy, he's right about that. In a statement this week, the department says the project does not meet scientific or safety expectations for continued investment. The CEO of Moderna says, however, the company will explore alternative paths forward for this program. All right, just ahead, a newer use for Botox, and it's not just reducing wrinkles. And we welcome those who help us stay motivated to move. Carolyn Keating is in the house. She has overcome the odds. We're going to share her story coming up on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Metro and Gastro Health.
In Look Good, Feel Better today, it's not the usual place you might think of for an injection, but a newer Botox trend injects Botox into the masseter muscles. Now, these are on the sides of your jaw, and they can help with chewing.
Nurse practitioner Donna Abdelnour says it started as a way to help relieve jaw pain.
So initially, it was used as a therapeutic use for TMJ.
But like many things, eventually those such as Stephanie found its benefit went far beyond that therapeutic use. They liked the way it made them look.
We've known for a long time that as we age, we begin to lose volume and elasticity.
Recently, due to weight loss medications causing what's often called Ozempic face, a lot of people have started losing that volume and elasticity.
So what we're going to do is we're going to inject a little bit. Can you clench for me?
So they want to get it back, which is where masseter Botox or sometimes fillers come in.
So we inject a little bit in that muscle just to soften that up.
It's a quick fix, as you can see, that can last anywhere from 3 to 6 months if it's Botox, longer if it's fillers. It lifts and softens the sides of the face.
It is a very easy treatment. It takes a matter of minutes, literally, for the Botox, a little bit longer, a few more minutes for a filler. But yeah, it's got a lasting impression, and it's very subtle, so it's not anything that people really look at and know that you've done something, but it's just a very subtle way to kind of rejuvenate.
And this type of injection has also been shown to relax the force. If you grind your teeth at night, that can help reduce pain and headaches. These injections usually start at a few $100s, and they're generally not covered by your medical insurance plan. All right, on now to a wonderful patient who was gutsy enough to come on set and tell us a little bit about her story. Tell us who you are.
I'm Carolyn Keating.
And you are a patient at the Christ Hospital.
I am.
Tell me a little bit about what got you there.
Yeah, I am a lifetime runner. I started running after college. I've run 24 marathons. So I was training for the Boston Marathon in 2022 and started getting weird symptoms when I was running. I was starting to get blurry vision, blacked out vision, really high heart rate, trouble breathing. I didn't really think anything of it and kept running. I ran the Boston Marathon and then turned around a couple weeks later and ran the Flying Pig Marathon. And then I was out with friends one day running and I started having symptoms again. So I stopped and kind of regrouped, and one of the guys in my group who was a physical therapist was like, "What's going on?" And I told him, and he said, "You need to go see your doctor." So I went and saw my primary care, Mark Robinson from Christ Hospital, and told him. And you know, us being the Google folks, I told him that I was dehydrated or my iron was low, to which he said, "Let's go back through those symptoms again." And he immediately did an EKG in the office and then sent me to see a cardiologist at Christ to get some more testing done. He talked to me about how young, healthy people can go into cardiac arrest and the risks of it. And he wanted to take it really seriously. And he sent me immediately to see another cardiologist.
So that might have been a little scary when he's like, "We're going to get on this," and you're thinking, "No, I'm fine." So a couple things. You get to that cardiologist and they see this EKG, and was it showing anything? Or?
So the EKG really wasn't showing anything. So they gave me a heart monitor to wear that was hooked up to a phone. And they told me they wanted me to go run because that's when I was having symptoms. So I immediately left the cardiologist's office and met my friends to run because that's what us crazy people do. And I was jogging with my friends. I was not running hard. We were having a conversation and I started to have symptoms again. And on the device, you push a button to let them know. And within an hour, she called me and was like, "What were you doing?" I was like, "I was just jogging with my friends." And she said that my heart rate was over 230, which is not where it should be in that case. It's very dangerous if it gets that high. So she immediately sent me to see an electrophysiologist at Christ Hospital, Dr. Knoll, where he did some more intensive testing with me.
And so for people who need a little perspective, like a resting heart rate's normally like 60 in a runner. It's pretty low.
Yes.
So for you to even ever get up there is remarkable. Mm-hmm. So he did some further testing, and what did he find?
Yeah, so he sent me, I had an ablation done. So they went in and it's basically like a study of your electrical pattern of your heart. Prior to that, they did do some testing just to make sure the structure of my heart was good. And everything from a structural standpoint was good. And I had no family history of any type of heart condition. So I went in for the ablation. So they did this whole study of the electrical patterns of my heart, trying to figure out what was actually going on. Unfortunately, the ablation didn't work in correcting the issue, but they were able to determine I was going into ventricular tachycardia, or VTach, which is the second deadliest heart rhythm, and it can lead to cardiac arrest. So for me, I was going into it for about 12 seconds at a time. But when you get into 30 seconds or above, it's cardiac arrest. So I was lucky in the sense that I never went into cardiac arrest. My body was correcting it. But I was also really lucky that Dr. Robinson took my symptoms seriously and got me the help I needed.
So it is interesting, and it's since now been corrected. How?
Yeah, so I then Dr. Knoll was amazing and had all kinds of studies done with me and worked with cardiologists all over the country. And he worked and partnered with a cardiologist up at Cleveland Clinic, where I had an epicardial ablation done. It's a pretty risky procedure, and only certain hospitals can do it. So he sent me up there to have it done. And they found a scar on my heart, which they ultimately ablated and corrected the issue. And then because I'm an athlete and I don't know when to say no, Dr. Knoll ended up putting a defibrillator implant in a couple months later, just as a precaution.
Has it gone off?
It has not gone off, outside of him testing it in surgery.
Right, that's good to hear.
Yes.
And how soon again were you able to start running?
So I had, from my ablation surgery, they weren't really sure when I would be able to exercise because I was having those symptoms while exercising. So we did more testing. I had stress tests done and other things. And after I recovered from the defibrillator implant, it was about a month, and I started running casually and easy with friends until I trusted myself enough. And it took me about a year and a half to get back to running a marathon.
So do you have any of the symptoms now when you run?
I am not having any symptoms when I run. So I do testing every 6 months with Dr. Knoll. My defibrillator implant uploads and sends him data once a week. But we do some more intensive testing about every 6 months just to make sure. But they keep stressing to me hydration and sleep, and then just trusting my body and listening to myself, because I know my body better than anybody else.
Boy, that's really true. So if you hadn't paid attention and they hadn't paid attention, you could have had a really different outcome.
Yep.
Do you share this story now to let people know that young people can have this happen?
I share it a ton because I've learned so much about heart health and the reality of it. I mean, heart disease is the #1 killer of women, more than all cancers combined. And I never knew that until I became the patient. And then I started seeing the stats on young people and healthy people and myself, and I think it's always interesting when I'm sharing my story and people are shocked that I'm the one that has heart disease, because I was a college athlete, I've run all these marathons, I look healthy, and I feel great today. But it can happen to anybody, and especially women. We never prioritize our health. We never put ourselves at the top of the list, and we have to, because if we're not around, we're not going to be able to help everybody else. So I always stress it to everybody else: if you're not feeling something, go and get yourself checked out, because the best thing they could say is there's nothing wrong.
Yeah, you're right. That's really true. That's a very, very strong message. Okay, a couple things. We have just a little cardiac rehab video, and we know that a lot of people face these and then they're afraid to exercise again, or it takes your motivation away. What kind of kept you going?
So I actually worked with a friend who is a physical therapist and a run coach to help me get back into it. I knew myself as a college athlete. I always push myself a little bit more than you maybe should, and I didn't want to do that. But at the same time, I didn't trust myself, because once I realized what the symptoms were and the severity of it, I had a little less confidence in what my body could do for me. So I surrounded myself with a team. I talked to my doctors at Christ Hospital and made sure that what I was doing was right. And then I really leaned on my coach to slowly take those steps back. It was a lot of checking my ego at the door, but I was happy to be back. And ultimately, like, staying active is important for your heart health.
Yeah, even in spite of the troubles, it's why they have rehab teams, it's why they have coaches to support you. So getting that attention, so somebody was watching, it was really smart. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so final thought. What is it that, I know you said women don't take care of themselves, I think people in general, but what is it that you feel like you most want people to know?
I really think it's that. I think going and making sure that you're paying attention to your body and getting yourself checked out and being established somewhere, because I had seen Dr. Robinson, my primary care at Christ Hospital, for years, and I trusted him, and I was able to go in right away, and he knew, he had a baseline for me, and we knew that everything that I was experiencing wasn't right. So going and getting your checks every year, even if you're feeling great, is also going to be super important.
Yeah, that is good to say, because when you're healthy, you think, I don't need to go, and that's what primary care is all about,
Exactly.
knowing you to know what's not right.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for being bold and sharing your story with us. It is inspiring in so many ways.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. All right, just ahead of hidden danger when it comes to THC edibles. We're going to share it in your healthy future. And we share stories of hope this National Cancer Survivor Month. Stay with us on what's happening in health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Northern Kentucky Area Development District.
In your healthy future today, healthy people who regularly smoke marijuana or eat THC-laced edibles are showing signs of early cardiovascular disease similar to tobacco smokers. That's the result of a small study. Researchers found vascular function was reduced by more than 40% in marijuana smokers. The function fell by more than 50% in people who eat THC edibles regularly compared to those who did not. An author of the study stresses, however, this research only reveals an association, not a cause. This week, we kick off National Cancer Survivors Month, and the team at St. Elizabeth Healthcare says personalized treatment is leading more people to live beyond a diagnosis. Those surviving, especially long-term, say they want to highlight outcomes that are changing lives, often in very personal ways.
They did a biopsy out of a lump in my neck, and I went into the surgeon that did it, and he gave me the news. I mean, it's pretty earth-shattering when you get it.
More than a decade ago, Brent Carrick was treated with chemotherapy for a cancer of the immune system.
It went away, so I was happy about that, until I was diagnosed with MDS, which is a form of blood cancer.
A bone marrow transplant now, however, has this musician cancer-free.
Just living day to day and, appreciating life.
Life isn't something many here at this survivor celebration at Kentucky's St. Elizabeth Young Family Cancer Center say they take for granted. Providers remind us.
You're not in it alone. We're all here to work with you, and we'll keep the communication and collaboration going as you go through this journey.
The journey now able to be customized to your needs with the help of targeted radiation and medication due to what's called precision medicine.
Yeah, precision medicine is finding mutations or proteins in an individual's body that suggests that certain drugs can be used to treat that patient not only most effectively, but with the least side effects.
This not only reduces the odds of recurrence.
Right now, I'll be on pills probably at least 5 years, maybe the rest of my life, but that's okay. I'm just going to keep fighting.
It also helps pinpoint early screening recommendations.
It's been repeated a million times, but do those self-exams, and if you suspect something, get to your doctor right away, because I think we caught mine early on enough.
All of this customized care, of course, allows you to treat not a cancer, but a person, which for survivors means
You learn to appreciate life, not sweat the small things so much anymore. Don't let a lot of things bother you anymore. Just move forward.
The goal, of course, is not only that this personalized medicine leads to more lives saved, but that it leads to good quality time in the many years that follow. All right, just ahead, that breakfast cereal may need a bit of a makeover. We explain why in Gut Instinct. It's next on What's Happening in Health. In Gut Instinct today, if you feed your children breakfast cereal, you may want to read the labels. Researchers say cereals are getting less and less healthy. They looked at 1,200 cereal products that debuted in the U.S. between 2010 and 2023. They were marketed to kids ages 12 and younger. It found protein, dietary fiber all decreased in cereal, but total fat, sodium, and sugar all went up. The study found the average amount of added sugar in a single serving of children's cereal is more than 45% of the American Heart Association's total daily recommended limit for children. Study's authors say parents may want to consider some other options like eggs, oatmeal, fresh fruit, whole grains, and peanut butter. All right, in Minding Your Health today, the trial of Sean Diddy Combs has had quite a focus on both physical and emotional abuse. But those who work with couples say a relationship often doesn't start out that way, which is why it is suggested we all need to know the early warning signs of a toxic relationship.
It can be as simple as a few behaviors you notice may be eating out. Licensed marriage and family therapist Stephen Lusardo told me pay attention to how people treat others.
So let's say we're at dinner. How are they treating the staff? Do their words match their actions? Are they in victim talk? So when they talk about past relationship and you're getting some relationship history, is nothing their problem? And is it always the other person's problem?
He says if you notice a pattern similar to some of what's been talked about in this trial, a lot of drama, a lack of accountability for inappropriate actions, or even excessive use of drugs and alcohol, all of these can be signs a relationship has the potential to be toxic.
If you set a boundary and you stick firm to that boundary, that can be a benefit to kind of see how the person reacts in part.
Pushing you to go beyond comfortable boundaries, not being supportive, controlling behaviors, resentment, and patterns of disrespect, he says, are all early signs a relationship is toxic. Quite often, he says, as talked about in this trial, others take notice, but they don't necessarily know how to help you get out or heal.
We can see these things, but we don't say anything.
And if you're wondering why sometimes, as we've seen in this trial, these toxic relationships go on for so long,
and more time in that, it's harder to get out of.
Now, there are a few ways for you to safely reach out if you do need support getting out of a toxic relationship and you're worried about safety. You can call 800-799-7233. That's the National Domestic Violence Hotline. They also have a text number of 88788. All right, in high-tech health, women who are self-employed tend to have better heart health than those not self-employed. A study by UCLA found the reason for lower rates of heart disease among self-employed women may be a better balance of stress, time demands, and home responsibilities. Men, however, did not experience as significant a benefit from being self-employed, though the reasons why right now are not exactly clear. All right, just ahead, food as medicine, how one woman says it has helped her heal, the impact on her Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS as we know it. A full hour of what's happening in health still ahead on Local 12.
The headline medical stories that affect you and your family. This is What's Happening in Health, sponsored by Mayfield Braden Spine.
Morning, everybody, and welcome back to our second half hour here on What's Happening in Health. Got a great rest of the show planned for you today. We start with those marketing messages that continue to tell you if you need help or you owe the IRS money, we can help you. But we know who can really do that. We welcome attorney Bill Hesch. He is here because this is part of his specialty. He'll share what we all need to know so we don't spend a lot of money trying to dig out of unhealthy debt. And bringing new flavor and wellness to the spotlight, making healthy eating simple and satisfying. Look who's in the house. Here to show us how to nourish body and soul and delight our taste buds, we welcome the creator of Smarty Plants Recipes, Shauna Helton, back to join us. She has a great passion for this, and we look forward to hearing more. But first, quick headline for you today. The Mediterranean diet may be the best diet to not just help your heart, but also preserve your bones. This according to a new study in JAMA Network Open. Researchers found this diet of plant-based foods, fruits and vegetables, olive oil, whole grains, seafood, reduced processed and sugary foods as well, is beneficial, especially to women building bone. They found it was really good for the lumbar spine over a 3-year review. In Healthy Innovations today, instead of you going to the doctor's office, why not bring healthcare to you? That's the idea behind Hamilton County and sending something in to help neighborhoods with medical needs. It's the bus that has 12 stops this month, called the 513 Relief Bus. It drives resources to the residents who need it most. They can get help with medical care and social services, and each stop offers a unique set of services and partners.
Medical, social services, mental health services. We've had people come to the bus and want to go to treatment for addiction. We've had people come to the bus and get a birth certificate printed right on the spot.
The 513 Relief Bus is free. All of its services are, and is funded by Hamilton County. Next stop is tomorrow morning, June 9th, 10 a.m. at the Cheviot Civic Center. And listen to this. A new study shows a condition known as misophonia may be linked to some common mental health conditions, such as depression and anxiety. Misophonia is sort of when it's like nails on a chalkboard to you, when you hear common sounds such as slurping, breathing, tapping a pen, or even snoring. Yeah, does that sound make you crazy? Researchers in Frontiers in Neuroscience have discovered that when you are hypersensitive to snoring or other sounds, it may be linked now to genes with other mood disorders such as depression, PTSD, and anxiety. They're all connected to this group of genes. It also suggests that treating some of these mental health conditions can reduce the sound sensitivity of misophonia. All right, just ahead, marijuana use is up in a surprising age group. We'll explain in Healthy Caregiving. And what to do if you need tax relief. Bill Hesh is in the house from Hesh Law. He's going to talk to us about how not to get scammed if you owe the IRS money. It's coming up on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Life Enriching Communities, NKADD, Huxworth, and Aptiva Health.
In Healthy Caregiving today, marijuana use among older adults has reached a new high, pardon the pun. Research by New York University shows 7% of adults 65 and older use marijuana within the past month. Most Americans live in states where marijuana is legal, either for medicinal or recreational purposes. Study also found marijuana use is rising in wealthier, college-aged individuals. All right, on now to our wonderful friend from the Hesh Law Firm who specializes in something that we're hearing a lot about these days. All of a sudden, I started getting this flood of messages. If you owe the IRS money, we can help you. So how come now, all of a sudden, we believe healthy finances are part of a healthy life. How come all of a sudden we're getting all these?
Well, the IRS is now opening up and they're starting collection efforts. And so that's the first step. People have not been contacted with the IRS since COVID. And so now you're getting letters and you're getting notices, they're filing tax liens, and that's where companies out there will contact you and say, hey, we help with debt relief with the IRS. And so there are companies out there that they specialize in that. The thing that people need to know, there's nothing special about what you need to do. The IRS has their rules, and actually they're pretty good, I think, to try to help people get back on the right track. And so if you're in a situation where you haven't been filing tax returns for a few years, and the IRS is part of the problem because they haven't contacted you the last few years.
In like 8 years.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's the first step. You need to get all your tax returns filed. They will not work with you in collection unless you file all your tax returns that are delinquent. The next step then is that it's called an installment plan agreement. So they're going to go through your finances and they're going to say what income do you have, what expenses you have. They actually put you on a budget. Okay, and so they will determine what your monthly expense is available to pay the IRS. And so that's something that they go through this process, and they will then determine that through that installment agreement, if your debt can be paid over the next 10 years, you're required to have an installment agreement.
Okay, so we have a little video of kind of IRS type things, and my question is then, you mentioned to me, if they don't get to you in 10 years, you don't have to pay it?
Yeah, that's the rule, because at 10 years, the liability goes away. Now, it goes away from 10 years from when you filed the tax return. So that's why it's important to file your tax return every year. It'll get that 10 years going. But people don't file the return because they don't want the IRS contacting them.
But if I haven't filed, let's say since 2012 now or whatever,
Yes.
that time is all forgiven?
No, it's 10 years from the date you file your tax return. So if you haven't filed your tax return for 10 years, you got 10 more years for everything.
So, but if I file then and they haven't reached out to me,
Well, that's the point. I had a client that filed back in 2012. They filed the return timely in 2013. And so 10 years later, that liability is off the books.
wow.
It was like over $100,000, $200,000.
And that probably happened to more people than we think in COVID, right?
They don't realize that it's supposed to get off the books. It should go off the books. You need to find that out as to whether or not the IRS did that. That's another problem too sometimes.
Okay, well, the reason I reached out to you, we have a graphic on how to spot a scam, was I couldn't tell if these companies calling me were legitimate or were scams. You know, were they just trying to get my money to get money? And so when I looked up how to spot a scam, a couple things came up, like they have anonymous ownership, they don't have a standing building and an address, they don't have a staff that you said will work with you, and they tend to have pretty high fees to go collect your money.
Absolutely.
So do I just start looking up those things, or how do I spot a scam?
Well, I think that's you hit it right on the head. Those are the things you look for, and so you would contact the company and try to check the Better Business Bureau would be one thing I would suggest. Because if the company's out there, they should have some complaints against the Better Business Bureau if they've been doing a bad job, okay? But the other thing I would option is you should go to a local CPA or local tax resolution debt company. There are some of those operations in Cincinnati. I feel it's better to meet with someone personally than just over the phone.
So you kind of specialize in helping people with that. When is a good time to make that call to you if I have debt that's IRS related?
Oh, as soon as possible, because the point is that you're going to get yourself into a hole. And the sooner you deal with the problem, the better. And that's one of the things as a financial planner I tell my clients. A lot of clients have been using the IRS money and to live off of. So when you do an installment agreement, they put you on a budget. And so I have some clients, I have one right now that we're going to file 3 years of tax returns, but we're not going to file until October. And then we're going to file 25 because this person needs to get their finances in order. And we're going to set up an installment agreement in January of 26.
But I think the fear is if I reach out to you and I let them know I haven't filed and I need to, I'm gonna, go to prison or.
Well, it's not criminal, so I would say that. Okay, they will use that, and I'll give an example that there was Tom Crush, the mayor of Cincinnati. They will go after prominent people criminally as to set an example for enforcement. But the everyday person, they have no interest in putting them in prison. They just want you to file your taxes and pay your taxes. And there's civil penalties and there's interest that's involved. And that's another thing too, that there are penalties involved in interest, so it really adds up the tax liability. So it's better to try to stay current and don't get behind 5 or 6 years.
So the longer you wait, the worse it gets.
The worse the problem is.
Yeah. All right, well, we have your address. The last question, I guess, then is if I want to meet with someone like this, do I get charged for an initial appointment or can I at least go talk to someone?
Yeah, I know. In a lot of professionals, myself included, will have like initial consultation at no charge. You would just address that up front with whoever you're working with. But we have that as a policy a lot of times that we will offer a free consultation for the first half an hour.
I appreciate that because you always feel like at least you can find out if there's sort of some chemistry and some realistic goals that you can meet with. And it sort of gives you hope. And hope's kind of important when you're.
Well, yeah, it scares people.
Yeah, it really does.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being approachable, talking about a tough subject because this is not an easy one. But all of a sudden we started getting these. I'm like, I need to find out why. So thank you for clearing that up.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, IRS is back to work. All right, coming up next, how diet changes could lead to mental health concerns. We're going to explain and wait no more. And here to show us how to nourish body and soul, the creative Smarty Plants recipes. Shauna Helton in the house. We'll meet her coming up on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Miami University, the Vein Center of Cincinnati, and Lindner Center of Hope.
In Wait No More today, a lower calorie diet could help you lose weight, but new research suggests it could also increase your risk of depression. A study published in BMJ Nutrition found people who were overweight and on a calorie-restricted diet reported feeling more depressed than people trying other kinds of diets. The authors of the study say calorie-restricted diets could lead to nutritional deficiencies over time and to stress, which can add to depression, especially if you've already been diagnosed with it. Also today, we share new research on preeclampsia from doctors at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. Preeclampsia is a dangerous form of high blood pressure in pregnancy, and it can lead to preterm birth and a number of health risks for mom and baby.
Now, in this study, researchers have discovered just how long some of those health risks can linger from mom's high blood pressure in a child's brain. Dr. Nehal Parikh told me when his team at the Neurodevelopmental Disorders Prevention Center at Ohio's Cincinnati Children's Hospital took brain images of babies born to moms with high blood pressure in pregnancy.
It showed more injury and more delayed brain maturation in babies that were exposed to maternal hypertension.
What's more is that when 340 preterm infants were cared for at 5 different intensive care units, children had decreased cognitive and language scores at age 2 if born to mothers affected by high blood pressure. As to why?
Brain development is likely the mechanism for at least part of the abnormal neurodevelopment.
So Dr. Parikh says women who are pregnant should note 2 things based on this research. The first is that preeclampsia risk can be lowered with weight management, physical activity, a healthy diet, and stress reduction in pregnancy. The second is that because early delivery is the only treatment for this condition.
Now that we know clearly that it's not only harming the mom, but also the baby, trying to prolong a pregnancy that is clearly going in the direction of severe preeclampsia probably doesn't make any sense.
Boy, there's some interesting research. Researchers have funding now to follow these children to age 7. They hope that that funding will expand to eventually track them to age 18 and see what kind of interventions help improve lives. All right, speaking of improving lives, we want to welcome Shauna Helton. You are with Smarty Plants. What is Smarty Plants Recipes?
Smarty Plants Recipes is minimally processed recipes using clean ingredients, a lot of gluten-free, dairy-free, low-carb, just some good, healthy food.
Well, we love what you do. We had a chance a little earlier this week. She's going to cook for us today, but we kind of got to go out and see you cooking in your kitchen and talk a little bit about your story. And you specialize sort of in the anti-inflammation diet, or foods that fight inflammation. And these foods tend to be, as you say, less processed. And if Prompter could roll forward with me, I could set up her package properly. There we go. They're whole foods, and new research shows eating these foods can fight everything from chronic illness to chronic pain. Watch this.
Are we ready to cook?
For Shauna Helton, who's been teaching her 3-year-old daughter Sophia how to cook,
I'm gonna go ahead and put this fish down, right?
Eating foods that fight inflammation has been life-changing. You see, Shauna lives with
joint pain, fatigue, severe fatigue.
Due to what's called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS. It's a connective tissue disorder which impacts skin and bones. Part of her healing?
For me, it's clean eating food. It's basically minimally processed, gluten-free, dairy-free, no preservatives, no dyes, no additives.
And while that may sound labor-intensive, Shauna shares recipes like this one-pan salmon and roasted veggies on her Smarty Plants Recipes site online.
This makes me happy, and sometimes you just need to find your passion.
That passion is powerful, however, for healing other conditions too. This week, the American Society for Clinical Oncology found eating a diet with fewer inflammatory foods is linked to better cancer survival. And the team at Johns Hopkins links lower inflammation to reduce risk for complications from heart disease, diabetes, and Alzheimer's. Shauna says to incorporate this kind of diet into your life,
it really did start with making her healthy foods.
Start small. Fresh protein over processed meats, plenty of colorful vegetables throughout the day. Go for oils and fresh herbs over butters or sauces, fresh potatoes over fries, and baking instead of deep frying when items are ready to be cooked.
So the thing I got asked the most after we aired that story is, will your little girl eat that way?
Sometimes she will and sometimes she won't. It's the typical toddler picky eating stage.
Okay, good to know, because they were like, boy, if you got her eating all that, you're doing really well. I said, yeah, she's got to be the perfect parent if she can do that. So, okay, so we kind of got the setup. How's the EDS? Are symptoms pretty good right now?
Today it is. Today, yes.
It's interesting because when I talk to people with that, they say I take it one day at a time.
Yes.
And today is a good day or today is not a good day.
Yes.
And it can be that sort of fluctuation.
Yes.
Yeah,
Up and down, up and down.
Well, I'm grateful it's a good day because we asked you to come back and make some of these beautiful foods. What are you making?
I am actually going to make turkey tacos, stuffed bell peppers. They're actually like a wrap. And then I've got some cilantro lime coleslaw to place on top.
Wow. Okay, so kind of just talk us through what do you have here and how do you build those?
Okay, so these are the tacos. I've got these right here, or not the tacos, but the bell pepper wraps. And then I have this fresh ground turkey. What I have done is I put a little water in it. Just kind of get
so it'll sizzle and be really good.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. So this is ground turkey you can just buy at the grocery store.
Yes.
And then you cook it up. And so are the bell peppers the wrap?
Yes, so basically the bell peppers are the wrap. All I'm gonna do, you can cook this on an outdoor griddle, indoor griddle, you can cook it on a skillet. It's multi-versatile. So I put the peppers down, I'm gonna lightly soften or grill them a little bit. And then right here I have some cumin, I have some chili powder. This is my own little blend of taco seasoning, smoked paprika, got a little bit of some oregano and some garlic powder.
Oh.
This is going to create our taco mix, and then we're going to put a little splash of lime juice in there. And then we're just going to kind of keep tossing this around, and cook it about 8 or 9 minutes or so. And if you're on an outdoor griddle, it's going to cook super fast, super fast. But like I said, you can do this indoors or outdoors.
That's a great idea. So I always mix mine ahead, but you're like, just throw it on the pan and mix it in there, which is great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So then part of what you do, as I look here, is you really focus on some of the food colors.
Yeah, I do like to focus on colors. I love colors because it's like artwork. So I like to eat my artwork. And it's just very healthy all around. I'm getting all the vitamins kind of through all the colors. Antioxidants, vitamin A, vitamin C.
And this time of year, especially in the summer, you know, the peppers and whatnot are sort of perfect. So can you talk a little bit while that's cooking about the what's in the, you said it's coleslaw that you put on top. That's a great idea, because usually you put your shredded lettuce and tomatoes, and I always tell people you get some vegetables, but this looks like a whole lot more.
Yeah, so it's a cilantro lime coleslaw. What's great about this recipe, it's a great summer salad, but you don't have to make it just a summer salad. You can actually put it as a taco salad. So you could take this turkey taco meat and put it in a bowl and then add this on top. It's crunchy, it's fresh, it's just a beautiful summer treat.
Okay, so then do you put that on? I know you have some of these that were sort of pre-cooked. Tell me a little bit how you serve that.
Basically what I did is I cook these peppers just for a little bit. You've got the garlic and you got your season. Once that's finished, you take it and you plate it and you put it in your pepper. Once you're finished, you can add a little bit of fresh lime on top on each of them if you want. You can add a little bit of the coleslaw on top just to give it just a little crunch, not too much. And that's pretty much it. And I did cook this with mangoes, but the recipe itself is very versatile. So you can switch it up. If you don't like mangoes, you can exclude
How do you
those.
not like mangoes?
I love mangoes.
And then I notice over here you have this fresh avocado. Do you top it?
You can put avocado on top of it if you would like. If you want some cilantro, it's kind of whatever. I give you the basics, and then you can spread whatever you think would taste good. But I happen to like the cilantro coleslaw.
All right, so I don't want to contaminate, but I do want to just take a bite of this, because we're going to have you stick around so that'll cook for the next half hour. Have you come back and we'll share in our second half hour. But oh, that's very light. It's delicious.
It's very light and crunchy. I just love it.
So topping that's a great idea. Like you see the white coleslaw, but having all that color. And I have to tell you, it's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's low carb. It's low carb. It's great.
Yeah, wow. All right, well, stick around. She's still got this to chop up and this to top and this to tell us what to do with, and more garlic. We love garlic. And we haven't used the green onions yet. So Shauna's going to stay with us for our next half hour. We'll continue this great conversation. Thanks for the great food. Thanks for sharing your passion.
Thank you.
All right, just ahead, new discovery that could potentially lead to new treatments for certain mental health concerns. We're going to tell you about that and what we hope you know about your mental health. And beginning with changing the conversation. Renee Mahaffey Harris is in the house We're going to talk about something that you don't hear a lot about, but grit, and talking to young African American women. Stay with us on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Network for Hope, William E. Hesh Law, and Serene Sweets.
In You're So Vain today, we all know that exercise is good for your vascular health. Now, a new study shows it may also fight at least one type of cancer. Researchers say it's a powerful prescription for healing.
I was diagnosed with endometrial cancer in November.
Those such as Kathy Maltby know this kind of healing.
And now I'm starting to be able to trust my body again and feel like I can do everyday things. That's really what I wanted to do.
Kathy and several others you see here are part of this 12-week no or low-cost Live Strong program at this Ohio YMCA.
It is for anyone that is a cancer survivor.
Trainer Sarah Jones says while they may work on traditional fitness skills,
the goal is to help them get their balance, flexibility, and strength back.
It's based on what this new American Society of Clinical Oncology study in colon cancer survivors shows. Movement is medicine.
They are warriors, battling, coming in here, pushing through.
In a first-of-its-kind trial, researchers found in patients with stage 3 and stage 2 high-risk colon cancer, 8 years out, those who participated in a structured exercise program had a 90% survival rate. This compared to 83% in the control group just given health education. There was a 37% lower risk of death in the exercise group as well.
I try to come at least 6 days a week.
Researchers say this information is so promising for survivors.
I've lost weight and I can do a lot more stretching.
Providers may want to recommend it as part of recovery.
I just decided I wasn't going to stay that way.
You see, not only does it appear to help heal the body,
I'm getting stronger every day. By far.
The feeling that you're not alone is more powerful than any prescription.
Loving on each other is also healing as well.
And researchers say just a few minutes a day matters, and this team says that'll help you build up from there. In Hope You Know today, which is what we hope you know about your mental health each week, there is new research studying new potential causes of mental health concerns. Scientists at UCLA are using brain mapping to find out what's happening inside our heads. The technology has already helped them discover there may be a physical reason for certain psychological problems. With the help of 3D laser imaging and AI, researchers are able to take a deeper look at the brain at a faster pace, and it is more accurate than other methods used to study the brain.
First, we want to look at exactly which part of the brain, which cells, how their connection get disrupted, and then if we can develop new drugs, can recover their connections, then that will help their mental health.
Researchers say they hope brain mapping is the next step in understanding more about the connection between our mental and our physical health. All right, just ahead, summer's here, so are serious safety risks for kids. What parents need to know about the 100 deadliest days for young people. And Shauna from Smarty Plants sticking around. She's going to show us some of the finished foods that taste good and are good for you. Got to try some of that turkey. It is all coming up in our next half hour. What's happening?
The headline medical stories that affect you and your family. This is What's Happening in Health, sponsored by TriHealth.
Morning, everybody, and welcome back here to What's Happening in Health. Got a great third half hour for you, beginning with some changing of the conversation, as we say, especially for young African American girls. Why it takes more than grit, according to advocates, to be lifted up. We knew who could talk about that. We welcome the CEO for the Center for Closing the Health Gap, Renee Mahaffey-Harris. So glad to have you here. She'll share more of what's behind this idea and the idea that teaching just grit is sort of anti-Black. And bringing new flavor and wellness to the spotlight, making healthy eating simple and satisfying. Demystifying. Shauna Helton sticking around. She's going to show us her finished product and where we can find the recipes for Smarty Plants. So glad to have you join us for the hour. But first, our top story this half hour is a new warning that's been updated as measles cases continue to climb. With more than 1,000 cases right now reported in the U.S., infectious disease specialists are sounding the alarm. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention just updated its guidance about the risk of getting this illness while you travel.
This concern getting a new push after the agency added up the number of people that appear to have been exposed to this infection while flying on airplanes. Infectious disease specialist Dr. Stephen Blatt of Ohio's Tri-Health told me measles is so contagious. If 10 people are exposed in a close environment where an infected person can spread respiratory droplets, 9 of them, if not vaccinated or immune from having the illness, will catch it.
Yeah, measles is really, really concerning because it's so incredibly infectious.
The CDC has received reports of at least 62 people who were contagious with measles while flying into the U.S. or within the country. They know for sure at least one of those passengers did spread this illness to passengers sitting nearby. So now the CDC has dropped its list of countries for which travel may put you at risk.
We know there's an outbreak in Mexico, there's an outbreak in Canada, there's outbreaks in Europe.
And now instead is warning travelers there's an ongoing risk around the world and more travelers are getting infected.
So the advice right now has also been changed from if you are not vaccinated against this illness, you might want to consider making alternative plans, to if you are not fully vaccinated, you now should consider postponing your trip. All right, in our Ask a Nurse today, how do you help a friend who may be in a dangerous or violent relationship? The team at Tri-Health has a program targeted at helping both men and women out of an unsafe situation. It is called the CARES program, and it begins in the emergency room. They have special cameras like these that document violence. You can see how they use those here. They affectionately call this camera Flow.
Flow has a lot of great features, and one of the great features she has is contrast software. So she takes examples of injuries that we see with the naked eye, and it applies color, which is contrast, and adversely it pulls color away from the surrounding tissues. So it's nothing magical, but it gives you better definition to the injuries that you see with the naked eye.
This then allows for precise documentation should a person need to get legal help getting out of an unhealthy situation.
I think it validates their experience, and anything that we can do to help validate that experience, I think, is a win. You know, sometimes it's not so much validating the experience so the survivor goes to court. Maybe that's where it just validates what they went through, and maybe that's where the wheels start turning, where they're going to start thinking of how to get out of the relationship.
You can start this process with any team member if you seek medical attention at Tri-Health or another area emergency room or urgent care center. If you would like more information about helping someone through the CARES program, we have a link inside the digital version of this story at what'shappeninginhealth.com. In Healthy on the Go today, summer break is here and kids are heading outside to soak up the fun and the sun, but safety advocates are also urging families to stay alert. The warmer months are often referred to as the 100 deadliest days of the year. And this is the time where a significant number of childhood injury-related deaths occur. About 41% of these deaths happen in the summer. So now those who focus on child safety remind us to make sure that children have properly fitted safety gear, such as helmets, car seats, and life jackets. All right, just ahead, an inspiring update about a young patient who recently received the gift of life. We'll share that in Waiting for Life. And we welcome the CEO for the Center for Closing the Health Gap. So good to have Renee Mahaffey-Harris back. She's got a great conversation that we're going to have about teaching young ladies grit. Stay with us on What's Happening in Health.
This portion is sponsored by Good Samaritan College of Nursing and Health Science and the Mental Health Recovery Board of Warren and Clinton Counties.
In Waiting for Life today, a heartwarming update today about little Archie from Archie's Army. You remember him? Well, we are happy to report that Archie has received his new kidney and is recovering well. His mom, Francesca Seymour, tells us he's doing really well right now. We can't see him in person yet because his family has to remain in quarantine for a couple of months. Got to build Archie's immune system back up. But he's on some medication, tolerating it well, and they still are asking for healing and recovering prayers for both this young patient patient and Archie's cousin who was able to be his donor. All right, on now to a wonderful conversation. We knew just how to ask about it. Renee Mahaffey-Harris is the president and CEO of the Center for Closing the Health Gap. First, tell us what that is and what you do.
Wow, so we are really working to co-create strategies with individuals in our community to really activate their agency in their health, from diabetes to cardiovascular disease to healthy lifestyle, which is the factor that contributes to most chronic disease. So what we eat, how we exercise, and how we take care of our mental well-being.
And that's kind of where the gap was. We would see in certain populations that some people, for example, you take like cancer screening and that if you get both populations, so you get, white people and people of diverse color in at the same time, they'll have the same outcomes. But if you don't, then you have this gap. And so you've really been working to try to shrink that.
Yes, we've been working to address the gaps in the disproportion of diseases to marginalized populations versus the majority population.
And I know you do that in a number of ways. And just recently I was kind of doing some research and this article popped up and it said, quite often, especially in young African-American girls, we talk about grit, that you just gotta kind of dig in your heels and pull up your bootstraps and go to work. And I had never heard this before, but the authors that were speaking of that said, that's sort of kind of a racist idea that if you don't give people other resources, just pulling up your bootstraps with anything and in any population is not enough. You wouldn't tell someone with diabetes, oh, you should just, go ahead and go on with your life and just pull up your bootstraps. You need insulin or whatever it takes. So they were comparing this as an idea that we need to expand. And I thought, Renee gets this, so tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that.
So it was a very interesting article because in that article it kind of got to the conversation on allostatic load, which I know is a medical terminology, but this idea that we just get through and that we keep getting through. And so specifically for women, but I'm not, for men and women, but for women in particular, it's like, well, we just keep pushing through. And so then those stressors that continue to hit our body end up having an impact on our physiology, and that physiological impact occurs in our brain, in our allostatic load. And so there's recent public health research as of 2006 with Dr. Geronimus that talks about the fact that persistent stress, calling that the weathering hypothesis, has a negative impact on our physiology. So the idea that we can endure a lot of stress, and so teaching young women that it's okay to endure actually is not the best solution. It's like you have to have self-care. You have to take time to breathe and learn those ways to really calm your brain so that it doesn't ultimately impact your speedier path to disease factors such as cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome. So you never really think about the fact that kind of just keep going, and that grit, as that article referred to, being elevated is what you should do, has a negative impact on your physiological outcomes as you age.
And whoever thinks about that teaching grit might not be the healthiest thing to do because you think of it as such a good thing. So I'm curious, we recently, I know you don't do your expo as a whole anymore, but UC Health did one out at Washington Park and we went and talked to some people and got some video there and that. I'm curious what kind of things then physiologically we should be doing so it's not just grit. What else should we be supporting? What should we be thinking about to give people that balance?
Well, first, we should have self-care. We should prioritize self-care. And even if that means that you don't have hours and hours of time to just sit and be in a calm space, quiet space, but how you can work on your breathing, how you can recognize when your body is in this heightened level of stress, and how you either remove yourself from it or how you learn some coping skills to manage through that stressful time. But that persistent stress is what weathering hypothesis, and I think what they're talking about in this article was this notion that continuing to push through that grit, teaching that grit is will have a negative impact over time to your brain, which ultimately will affect your body. So it's always been mind, body, soul, right? They are all connected. And so really as when you're young, because you're trying, you model the behavior. So as young women, understanding that, okay, I have a lot on my plate, but I'm going to have to prioritize me somewhere in here. Even if that means you take 5 minutes, 10 minutes to sit and have some breathing exercises or just turn off the TV, turn off social media, and just sit quietly just to have your brain to calm down. Recognizing that you got to build that into life. Just as you're kind of encouraged to get through, you got to make sure that you're taking time to take care of yourself. And if you continue that path as you age, it obviously is going to have an impact. So when I talked about those disease factors of metabolic syndrome, as cardiovascular disease, and other diseases that are stress-borne, we don't want those diseases to present themselves younger. We want you to learn how to manage some of those stressors, even though you've kind of been taught and you've seen your mom, your grandmother kind of just get through it. Now I think I know I'm telling my daughter, and frankly she tells me, I don't think I want to do those many things. I think I want to slow down. I want to make sure I take time to enjoy life and go to a concert. So I think teaching this balance and recognizing that stress has an impact that we don't see. It's an impact in our brain. It's in our allostatic load. And so that's what this article talked about as well, that this constant grit has an impact on your allostatic load, which will ultimately impact early incidence and onset of stress-related diseases.
I love that you said that. That is just so important, because what we used to think is you were praised for not sleeping, not having to take time out for you,
right.
Always being on the go, accomplishing everything in your day, and it is really an opposing way of thinking,
right.
And now we understand why. So God bless you. Thank you for that. If you would like more information, the Center for the Health Gap, or Center for Closing the Health Gap, has a number of programs. I know you don't charge people for those. You have support. You can go online at what'shappeninginhealth.com and find those and sign up. You got a number of men's health things coming up this month as well. So we look forward to hearing that. Thank you for sharing some of the tough stuff and having this conversation. It's really important. All right, up next, one generous heart making a big impact. We're going to share more in our Donor of the Week. And Shauna's sticking around, Smarty Plants recipes. She's going to show us what she made. We're going to get to try some of that turkey coming up on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Northern Kentucky Audiology, the Center for Closing the Health Gap, and Journey Light.
In our Donor of the Week today, we highlight a local man who says he donated for years, not for the recognition, but because it's a simple act to give back to those in need. I want to introduce you to Jeff Buchanan. He has a heart for giving. He's been donating regularly during his free time, says that it is a simple gesture to give back to save someone's life.
Anything I can do to help the community, that as often as I can or whenever they need it the most, I'm more than happy to do it.
So we need to let you know, if you would like to donate in the month of June, Hawksworth is being really generous. They've got a summer fun program, and it involves coffee. So you get a free card and a free Big B coffee. It's all part of these summer fun days. They'd love to have you call and schedule an appointment. The blood is promised to area hospitals based on these appointments. 513-451-0910. All right, as promised, look at that. So you put the mango right in the turkey.
I did. I put some mango in there just to kind of heat it up a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit of green onions. They don't have to be thoroughly cooked, because you want a little bit of a crunch to it.
The al dente, yes.
Yeah, just a little bit of a crunch to it. So right here we have the bell peppers that are finished. So if you're on an outdoor griddle or indoor or cooking on a stovetop, all you're looking to do is just soften just a little bit. If you're on an outdoor griddle, it might crisp up a little around the edges, and that's still good too. But what you're wanting is to be able to get that good crunchy bite.
So can you fill one or show us how you do that?
I would love to. I
kind of want to see how you make this.
So we've got one here and another one here. So these are done.
Okay.
We're going to take this, just kind of spoon just a little bit in there. And if you want to go heavy and messy, you can. But I like to leave a little room for the cilantro lime coleslaw.
Okay.
So we've got that there. Okay. And then if you want some avocado, you can put it on top. Extra mango, you can put it on top. I like to just take a little bit of this slaw, just a little bit, just to get a little bit of a crunch here. Let's get a little purple cabbage in there too. And then we got that there. And then if you want to put some more lime on there, you can. It's a little messy.
Hey, messy usually means it's good.
I think so.
All right, so put some lime on and put these other, just so we can like take a finished picture of that.
This is your,
I see what we mean by mustard. Good job.
A little bit of lime, and let's do a little bit of avocado too.
The citrus really does make a difference in that little bit of flavor. I know
Yes.
sometimes I even put that on just other vegetables. It's delicious.
Okay, let's see.
And the avocado's in perfect season right now. I notice you're using the seasonal foods, and there is some thought that if we eat by the season, we would all be healther, you know, because God sort of does that with as the seasons rotate. All right, so this is the finished product. I want to make sure, I know I did taste a little bit of the salad either. I'm going to dig in the yellow pepper, so when people are eating later, don't eat the yellow one because I did that. And I'm going to try and avoid the one big piece of garlic, but otherwise, oh, that's really good. So I got a little bit of turkey, a little bit of mango.
Yes.
There's a little zip to that, which is delicious. And you could really do that with chili seasoning. You could use kind of whatever you want.
Yes, you can like kind of play with it. I like to take it like this, like a whole one, and just
bite right into it. Yeah. And if I weren't wearing like a dress, then I would get that all over with. But it is really good.
But you can make a lot of these for like a barbecue grill out and get together.
And it's so pretty and so colorful. So I just had one question, because I know you said you had kind of a journey to healing. You said you were diagnosed with EDS in 2019.
I was.
And I know if people are watching, there's really not a cure for that. So
No,
did you
there's
just sort
not.
of start managing your symptoms with some of the healthy eating and that kind of thing?
Well, when I got diagnosed, I was walking into an unknown territory. But when I got diagnosed, it was the first time that I felt heard and seen and validated for what I was feeling on the inside, but wasn't able to kind of get that connected on the outside. So it started with baby steps, learning what was going on inside of my body, what was going on with my gut, what was going on with how I was feeling overall. And when I went down the journey of like learning about foods, I learned that some of this stuff creates histamines in people with EDS and these type of like autoimmune conditions. Histamines can create inflammation, and histamines and inflammation can create joint pain. So what I did is I started cutting back on my gluten. And then I started on the dairy. And then I started looking at labels. I started reading all the labels. And some of the stuff that's, put in there it's not great for pain or inflammation and those kind of things. So I started just removing those. I became, I would like to say, an expert at reading labels.
Yeah.
Every time I'm in the store, I read the labels.
I do that too.
Yeah. I'm like, what's in there? I need to know, So I started just eliminating all that. And then I try to, when I can, go organic. I try to choose that. I just try to go with that's more clean and healthy.
Well, that's what I think. I think you don't necessarily have to do all that. If you can even go to Whole Foods, you don't have those other ingredients anyway. And these are kind of, that's what this plate really is. Well, thank you. My last question, what do you do with the parsley, or is that parsley?
If you want to cut some cilantro, I keep sometimes the cilantro in like a jar in the fridge, but you can just take it and snip it, and then I've got like a little bit, and you can just put it on top too. If you want extra cilantro for your coleslaw, if you want to add some more to that, you can too.
Cilantro doesn't just taste good, it smells good.
Yes.
And there is some thought that the scent is healing as well. So thank you for sharing your passion with us. We will put the recipes from Smarty Plants Recipes at what'shappeninginhealth.com and continue to share these. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
It's beautiful. The food is really beautiful. All right, just ahead, have another cup of coffee. Up next, the hidden health benefits researchers have discovered. We'll tell you about it in Healthy Conditions on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Mount St. Joseph University, Elder Law Lawyers, and Advanced Cosmetic Surgery and Laser Center.
The number of kids getting measles, mumps, and rubella vaccines is dropping. Johns Hopkins University found vaccination rates have dropped 2% since the pandemic to 91%. While that may not sound like much, it does get further away from the 95% vaccination rate required for herd immunity. Currently, the U.S. is in the midst of the largest measles outbreak in years. 2 unvaccinated children have died. In Body by Design, today children born to mothers with obesity face a higher risk of infections. Research published in BMJ Medicine found infants were 41% more likely to be admitted to the hospital for an infection if moms were obese, and 53% more likely to be admitted between the ages of 5 and 15. Worldwide, it is expected that 1 in 4 moms will be classified as obese by the year 2030. Finally, we want to leave you with a headline, some good news if you're just getting up and having your morning cup of coffee. It's in Healthy Conditions today. Your morning cup of coffee could boost your brain health. A study by Harvard University found women who drank coffee regularly in midlife were more likely to have signs of healthy aging, including having no cognitive or memory concerns and being free of major chronic diseases. The study found that women who drank non-caffeinated coffee or tea did not get this same health benefit. So that's the good news. That is it this week for What's Happening in Health. We are back same time next week. Hope that you will be too. Until then, everybody stay well and stay tuned.